X. Minus.
Minus, so let's see, negative 3 times negative 1. Plus 3?
Plus 3, yeah.
Equals x minus 7. All right, ready? Combine like terms. I have 3 terms. Yeah, 3. Mm-hmm. And I can combine 2 out of the 3. Which 2?
3 and 2.
So these 2 I can combine?
No.
No, good. The constant terms, right? So 2 plus 3 is? 5 minus 3x equals x minus 7. All right, now what? Put the x's on one side. Okay, which one should I move in which way? Plus 3x?
Yeah.
All right, let's add 3x to both sides. Add 3x. And let's go ahead and do the opposite of this one. This one says what? Plus 7 on both sides. Add a 7. All right, let's see. We got opposites here. These are opposite. That's a 0. That's a 0. So 7 plus 5 is 12 equals 4x. One more step. Andrew, what do I do?
You had to divide by 4. Divide by 4.
Divide both sides by 4. Good job. All right, final answer. X is 3. All right, so my question for you is, am I done? Is this my solution?
No.
Oh, I got a yes and a no. Am I done or not? Or are we done? Michael says we're not. Anybody else think that we're not?
We're not.
We're not. Okay, can I have an explanation as to why we're not?
We have to check it.
Say it again?
We have to check it.
I should check it, but why else are we not done? Go ahead. You want to answer that? Why are we not done? All right, guys, I need thinkers in here. I don't want daydreamers. Let's think. Yes, why?
How did you get 12?
7 plus 5.
7 plus 5. Yeah, that's 12, dude. Yeah. I thought it was 11.
Let me see. All right, I'm going to give you some time again to turn and talk because I'm not going to.
Maybe no. Wait.
Did you say it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But we gotta make sure
All right.
that
Well,
the
just give
equation
me
is
what you
right.
got. Let's see.
Double check
We're
this.
saying what you did. I'm going to give you half a minute so you can turn and talk to your group because no one's raising their hand, no one's volunteering. So turn and talk. What method was that? What did they tell us to do? How did we practice it on Monday?
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good, good. So can I just say my favorite part of the lesson was when, I forget which gentleman it was, but I think he was in this group right here. And you asked him to basically solve the problem. And he says, well, I don't know if I got it right. And then your response was, well, just write as much as you got on the board and then we'll do it together. I thought that was dope. Because that's the whole point, right? Is you're trying to get them to express.
Yeah, but they don't want to be wrong. But
Right.
they don't want to take a chance either. Yeah.
Yeah.
So encourage them to just try and then.
And for that group, what that did was that opened up, like, because they were talking more and they were able to interact and it was a little bit more freer, as opposed to him feeling like, okay, I'm going to get this wrong, so I don't really want to participate. Your class participation was awesome today. Every group was participating. Everybody was asking questions. So I just have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Just kind of think back for best practices. What were you hoping that your students were able to do after the lesson today?
Well, I wanted to, I was hoping that they could, once they isolated their variable, they start solving it as if it were an equation. But then they have to check to see, well, this is how the book introduced it. So this is different than what I was used to because when I learned it, we didn't learn like that. We just learned it straight from this is an inequality, solve it, and you have to know which direction the graph goes. But when we met on our pullout day, all the Math 1 teachers, and we were reading the teacher notes and the way that CPM was introducing the lesson, we all agreed that we would teach it like this.
Okay.
So when they go to tutoring help, we would all be on the same page as far as the students' notes and how we're approaching the problem.
Nice.
So we all agreed that that's how we would do it. So that's why I emphasize make sure that the inequality, or just rewrite the inequality like an equation, solve it,
Yeah.
use your boundary point, and then test a point on either the right side or the left side. That's what I was hoping to get out of today's lesson.
Okay. Okay. Now, do you think you succeeded?
I think 100%, probably not, but I think a lot of them started getting that idea.
Why do you say not 100%?
Because when they did their problems, they just left it as an equal sign. No, this is my answer. Like,
Okay.
M is equal to 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So they weren't fully completing
Yeah,
the
they
whole
got
process.
part of it, but they didn't persevere to the end to write it as an inequality and then show the little graph.
Okay. Now, was this the first time that you introduced inequalities and teaching them the step by step the process? How to solve?
We talked about it on Monday, but it didn't go this far in the depth of what we did in class today.
Okay. Okay. I got you. How did the students demonstrate their learning today?
I think today was, even though I saw some kids that were not fully participating with their group, sometimes they were talking or sometimes they were on their phone. For the most part, I felt that they did ask questions, and I felt that even if they weren't the ones that went up to the board, I'm hoping that they did get this inequality business down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Can I-
that there's like more than one solution, not just one.
Right. Can I share some data with you?
Okay.
So it was a short period today, so it was about 45 minutes.
Like
in
47,
the
I think.
class. For 35 minutes, the students were actually working together
yay.
and doing work. And for 10 minutes of that time, you were giving direct instruction, which I think is amazing because the majority of the time, the students were interacting with one another, or they were asking questions, or helping one another on the board. So I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know about the proportions of time. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
I think that's really good because that's usually one of my weaknesses is I think I talk too much, and then I take over too quickly when I notice that they're not like following directions immediately.
Right.
So my wait time was better, and I think that allowed them to persevere.
Yeah, definitely. I want to share a couple of things with you.
Okay.
This is a tool, a lesson planning tool. Let me give you this copy. And I want to give you this too. This is traditional planning versus backwards planning. So let's talk about the traditional planning versus backwards planning. Which one would you say, after looking it over, which one would you say that you did today?
Let's see, follow order of book, do the problems, allow students to work, give homework, backwards. Well, actually, all right, we already did meet as a big group, so we know what the expectations for the outcomes should be. So
you guys met, just to qualify. You guys
all of
met
the math
last
1
Thursday,
teachers, we had a pull-out day, and we met and we went over the planning, like how long is this going to take us, how many days per lesson, what homework problems to assign,
Okay,
that sort of thing.
got you.
And so
Did you choose your test too?
we talked about the kinds of questions that should be on the test. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Which one of these do you think is most effective and why?
Oh. I'm going to say this one.
Okay. Why do you think
Backwards planning, because it validates and exposes to the teacher what is coming. And if we know what's coming, then we can plan accordingly. And then we can assign problems accordingly. And then we can assign or make test questions accordingly.
And
Yeah.
what do you think it does for a student?
Well, since we're better prepared, I think the student can also be better prepared because of the kinds of the way that we're formulating our lesson is leading to something specifically.
Right, and there's no surprises, right?
Right.
Don't you hate when you're in that class and you get the test and it's always like 2 or 3 questions on there that you've never seen before, and then you're like, well, how am I supposed to do that, right? So I like the fact that you guys met earlier. I didn't know that, and basically designed this particular section backwards, using the backwards planning. I want to share one other thing with you too, and that's the planning for effective instruction. And you can use either side. I want to talk a little bit about this side right here. Connecting, modeling, shared experience, guided practice, collaboration, independent practice, and closure. Out of these, where would you say you feel as if you're strongest, and where would you say that you're weakest in terms of
Okay, let me
your
see.
le-
Is
your
this
lesson
we
planning?
have the same one? Okay.
Yes.
So let's see.
'Cause you did all these things. I just want to know where
Where
do you think that you
my
would need
strengths?
more support? Yeah,
Oh,
your
okay.
strengths.
Identify my strengths or identify where I need
Identify your
improvement.
strengths and identify where
Okay.
you need improvement.
All right. So I think my strengths are in modeling. I think I made a pretty good connection with my instruction and the book. I don't always like the examples they give, but I did like today's with the trees and the United Nations. And
Okay.
encourage collaboration. I think that's good.
Yep.
Where I need to strengthen would be in the closure. I think that would be my biggest strength. I mean, my biggest area of growth.
Well,
Yeah.
what is it about the closure that you want to do better at?
Maybe after the lesson, I went around asking. Well, I instructed the students in their groups to share one thing with their group that they got out of today's lesson,
Okay.
and so I let them have a couple of minutes, and then I went and I asked a couple of groups to share. I asked one person in particular in the group to tell me something that a group member shared, not what they shared, but what a group member shared,
Gotcha.
which would allow them to talk about what someone else said as opposed to what they said, and they tend to be a little bit freer with that.
Yep.
And because I only asked a couple of groups, so I got good feedback from one group, but not so good from another. Another was like, "Oh, I'm not sure. I wasn't listening," and so maybe I need to state or articulate that maybe I should have front-loaded them on this. That I'm going to ask you, and you should be ready to share
Gotcha. So having that
at the
forefront of
at the
class,
beginning. Yeah,
so that they know that it's coming.
right.
Excellent. I just got one more question for you, too. Thank you for sharing your strengths and growth areas. So for the growth, before I ask you my last question, for the growth, I will meet with you to talk about how we can incorporate that more into your lesson planning, your closure, how we can make your closures a lot more tighter.
A little stronger. Yeah.
Stronger. So I have a very pointed question based on the instruction today. So I noticed at the beginning you modeled, you showed them how to do the problem, and then you let them work on it. And then for the second part, you did a quick modeling for the word problem. You walked them through the word problem, and then you let them work on it. Is there a reason why you did not let them tackle the word problem after you had done the modeling up front for the first piece. Just trying to walk through in terms of your mind, like what you were thinking and why you didn't let
Yeah,
them
that's a good question.
attack that by themselves.
Actually, I meant to do that, and then before I knew it, I was already writing on the board. So, and I also felt like the time was getting away, and I wanted to make sure I got to that.
Okay.
So I didn't want them. I wanted them to have, because what we were writing on serves as their notes, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to make sure. I wanted to make sure that when they wrote it correctly, and not had time to write what maybe they thought was correct, but then not.
Right.
So
So you
Yeah.
did you? So even more pointed, did you think that they would have a problem, that they would struggle with interpreting the words into an actual equation or inequality?
I think that they would have struggled, but I think that if I given a little more time, I think they could have all gotten it.
could've
Gotten it, yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted. Because you did a really good job in the beginning modeling, so I was like, okay, why is she modeling again
Yeah.
and showing them how to do it again? So that was the only part that I was concerned about or wanted to ask you a question. So going forward, in terms of what we're looking at for the planning for effective instruction using the lesson planning tool, we're going to be looking at closure. Is there anything besides closure that you'd like to check out? I know you said your strengths are modeling and collaboration.
Anything else that I feel I need to work on?
Yes.
Well, I mean, we always
don't
need
have-
to work on
Right,
something,
right.
but
I'm not forcing you to pick some. I just want to make sure because
Okay.
that'll be the next thing that I come and I'll observe
I
and
think-
check you out.
I think I can always get some help on other forms of getting the kids to collaborate without, I mean, putting their phones down and
Okay.
collaborating.
Fully.
Yeah,
Fully
engaged.
being
Yeah,
fully
not
present.
talking and then checking.
Okay.
That's probably more of some classroom management too.
Gotcha. Cool. Is there anything else you want to share about the lesson?
Overall, if I did it again, I would not do the modeling again on the application problem.
Okay.
Or I would let them maybe give them just at least a couple minutes to see what they came up with on their own.
Yeah.
That, and I think that's about it. And then better closure.
Sweet. Awesome. I think you did a great job. This is one of the most I've seen the kids engage. I mean, every group was working, and they were actually working with one another and asking questions and correcting one another too, which is cool. So thank you again for letting me come into the class.
Okay.